They won't see it coming. That's the beauty of silence. One day you're available, you're present, you're consistent, and then you're gone. Not out of bitterness, not because you needed revenge, but because you finally understood your energy wasn't being valued. And this time, instead of explaining your worth, you chose to protect it. There's a level of class in quiet withdrawal that words can't imitate. No announcement, no dramatic exit, just absence. And in that absence, a space opens. A space where your presence used to live. A space they didn't even realize was full of light, until it wasn't. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you are requires losing who you were. And most of all, letting go of the versions of yourself you created to survive in places you no longer belong. At some point, you stop trying to convince people to care. You stop explaining yourself to those who never really listened. You stop hoping they'll wake up and realize what they lost while you were still right there, quietly holding the center. Disappearing with class isn't about punishing them. It's about honoring yourself. It's the decision to choose elevation over validation, to take your depth, your time, your energy, and place it where it can finally grow. You don't post about it. You don't leave breadcrumbs. You don't send one last message just to be understood. No, you leave the party with grace, your dignity intact, your silence echoing louder than any confrontation ever could. And that's what they'll remember, not the noise you didn't make, but the space you left behind, the energy you once gave so freely, the emotional shelter you provided without asking for anything in return. That's what will haunt them, your class, not your anger, your composure, not your chaos. Because while they were playing games, you were building character. While they were pulling back to test your value, you were gathering the strength to never return. And when you finally leave, not with resentment but with understanding, your absence becomes the loudest thing in the room. You see, disappearance isn't about vanishing from the world. It's about vanishing from a version of life that kept you small, that kept you doubting, that kept you reacting instead of rising. And when you walk away without a scene, you reclaim your narrative. You no longer play the role they wrote for you. You become the author. Carl Jung believed that people don't see the world as it is. They see it as they are. And some people, they saw your calm as weakness, your kindness as permission, your silence as confusion. But what they failed to recognize is that your restraint was a choice, a strength, a quiet mastery over self. And when that kind of energy walks away, it doesn't leave a void, it leaves a mirror they're forced to look into, one that shows them everything they ignored, dismissed, or took for granted. And while they sit in that reflection, wondering where your light went, you're already somewhere else, thriving in peace, in purpose, in spaces that feel like alignment instead of exhaustion. This is what Stoicism teaches us, that true power lies not in how others treat us, but in how we choose to respond. The Stoic doesn't seek revenge, he seeks control, not of others, but of himself. He doesn't collapse when disrespected. He doesn't chase apologies, he simply observes, accepts, and walks away with clarity. And when you live with that kind of class, your life changes. You no longer pour energy into proving your worth. You no longer argue to be understood. You no longer beg people to stay, because you've realized your presence is a gift, and those who can't recognize it don't deserve it. You disappear with your head held high, not to prove a point, but because you finally see the value of your own peace. And when you do it right, calm, intentional, without drama, they'll never forget it. They'll hear your silence in every moment they expect a reaction. They'll feel your absence in every place your energy once lived. But you'll be too far gone to care, focused, centered, free. Because freedom isn't loud. It's not a status update. It's not a final text saying I'm done. True freedom is quiet. It's the way your mind finally relaxes when you're no longer at war with someone else's indifference. It's the calm that arrives when you realize you don't have to keep proving yourself in rooms that never saw your value in the first place. That's what makes your disappearance unforgettable. They were expecting noise, a reaction, a breakdown, but you gave them silence. You gave them mystery. You gave them class. And now they sit with questions you'll never answer. That's the beauty of detaching with dignity. It turns confusion into consequence. Carl Jung spoke often of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we suppress or hide. And sometimes, disappearing is what forces others to confront their own shadow. When they no longer have you to project on, to drain, to lean on without offering anything back, they're left alone with the parts of themselves they tried to avoid, and that's where the discomfort begins. But that's no longer your burden. You've crossed the threshold now. You've entered a space where your peace matters more than their approval, where you can look in the mirror and see someone you respect, not because you never felt pain, but because you chose not to let it define you. That kind of evolution can't be undone. Once you've tasted what it feels like to live without performing, without shrinking, without chasing, you never go back. You stop showing up to battles that drain your soul. You stop proving anything to people who see only what they want to see. Instead, you become more selective with your presence. You speak less, but say more. You share less, but feel deeper. You don't need the spotlight to feel whole, because you've lit your own fire from within. And that inner glow, it speaks for you. That's the kind of class no one forgets. And now, you don't look back with anger. You don't replay the story to make sense of their silence. You've made peace with what didn't grow. You've accepted that not everyone is meant to go where you're headed. And that's not cruelty. That's evolution. Disappearing with class is not about vanishing from the world. It's about reappearing somewhere else. Stronger, wiser, calmer. You don't vanish into bitterness. You rise into clarity, into purpose, into a life no longer driven by the need to be chosen, but by the decision to choose yourself, fully, unapologetically, and without condition. The people who once dismissed your softness will remember the strength it took for you to remain silent. The ones who mistook your presence for permanence will carry the weight of your absence, and long after the noise fades, your silence will still speak. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what this journey is. A conscious return to yourself, a reclamation of your energy, a step away from noise and into truth. The Stoics knew this too, that the more you let go of what you cannot control, the more powerful you become. Because real power isn't in what you hold on to, it's in what you're willing to walk away from with grace. So disappear, not out of pride, but out of understanding. Let the world guess, let them wonder, and while they do, keep building, keep healing, keep becoming. Because when you leave with this level of class, you don't just disappear, you transcend.